It was another sleepless night in Westfield Hall, the oldest dormitory on campus, where the walls were so thin you could practically hear someone thinking in the next room. That's where I, Alex Chun, found myself at the beginning of my sophomore year, staring at the ceiling and wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake requesting to live on campus again. Don't get me wrong, I love college. The classes, the independence, even the dining hall food that everyone complained about, but I secretly enjoyed. What I didn't love was my roommate, Tyler Jenkins, who seemed physically incapable of existing below the volume of a rock concert. I'm what you'd call an introvert. I prefer quiet evenings with a good book or binge-watching documentaries with headphones on. Tyler, on the other hand, was the human embodiment of a party. He was constantly surrounded by friends, playing video games at full volume, or practicing what he called his sick beats on a mini electronic drum pad that might as well have been a full drum set for all the peace it afforded me. That particular Tuesday night, Tyler was hosting what he called a small gathering of his gaming friends. Their idea of gaming involved shouting obscenities at the screen whenever they lost and erupting in thunderous celebration when they won. I had a midterm paper due the next day and couldn't focus with World War III happening 5 feet away from my desk. Dude, can you guys keep it down a bit? I've got this paper due tomorrow, I asked, knowing it was probably futile. Tyler glanced up, his face illuminated by the glow of the screen. Oh yeah, sure man. Sorry about that. He turned to his friends and whispered something that made them all laugh, but the volume did decrease for approximately 3 minutes before returning to its previous ear-splitting level. I sighed, gathered my laptop and notes, and headed to the common room downstairs. This had become our unspoken arrangement. When Tyler's social life became too overwhelming, I would retreat elsewhere. It wasn't ideal, but it was easier than confrontation, which I avoided at all costs. The common room was surprisingly empty that evening, except for one person, Noah Williams. I'd seen him around, of course. He lived down the hall in room 215, and it was hard not to notice him. Noah had this effortless charm about him, the kind that drew people in without trying. His dark curly hair always looked perfectly tousled, like he'd just rolled out of bed, but somehow made it work. He was sitting on the worn-out couch, his long legs stretched out in front of him, a textbook balanced on his lap. I hesitated at the doorway, suddenly self-conscious about my faded Star Wars t-shirt and messy hair. Noah looked up and smiled, and I felt something flutter in my stomach that I immediately tried to ignore. "Roommate troubles?" he asked, his voice warm and knowing. I nodded, surprised he'd guessed so easily. "Is it that obvious?" "Well, I've seen you down here almost every night this week, looking increasingly desperate," he laughed. "Plus, everyone on the floor knows about Tyler's volume issues." I groaned, settling into an armchair across from him. "Great, so I'm part of the dorm gossip now." "Not gossip," Noah corrected. "More like shared suffering. My roommate, Kevin, isn't much better. He snores like he's trying to communicate with whales." That made me laugh, and some of the tension I'd been carrying around eased. We fell into easy conversation after that, discovering we were both English majors with a minor in film studies. Noah was passionate about screenwriting, while I leaned more toward literary analysis. The hours slipped by, and before I knew it, it was past midnight, and my paper was still only half finished. "I should probably get back to this," I said reluctantly, gesturing to my laptop. Noah nodded. "Yeah, I should head up too. Good luck with the paper and the roommate situation." As I watched him gather his things, I couldn't help but feel a strange disappointment that our conversation was ending. I pushed the feeling aside, reminding myself that I didn't have time for distractions, especially not ones with perfect smiles and eyes that seemed to see right through me. The next few weeks followed a similar pattern. Tyler would be Tyler, loud and oblivious, and I would escape to the common room, where Noah was often studying as well. We fell into a comfortable routine, sharing space and conversation, gradually learning more about each other. I discovered he was from Seattle, loved rainy days, and had a collection of vintage cameras. He learned about my passion for classic literature, my terrible cooking skills, and my dream of becoming a professor someday. What I didn't tell him was how I looked forward to these evenings more than I cared to admit, or how I sometimes found myself thinking about the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed. I'd known I was gay since high school, but I'd always been private about it, not out of shame, but because it felt like something personal, something that was just for me. And besides, I had no idea if Noah was interested in guys, and the last thing I wanted was to make our comfortable friendship awkward. Let me explain why this matters. In college, finding your people is everything. It's about finding those connections that make you feel less alone in a sea of stressed-out young adults, all pretending they have their lives figured out. Noah had become important to me, a bright spot in my otherwise routine days, and I wasn't willing to risk that. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Friday in late October, and the campus was buzzing with Halloween preparations. Tyler had announced he was heading to a costume party at the Alpha Sigma house and wouldn't be back until whenever the beer runs out, which meant I had the room to myself for the night. I was secretly thrilled, planning an evening of uninterrupted reading and maybe treating myself to a movie without headphones. I was just settling in, wearing my most comfortable sweatpants and a hoodie, when there was a soft knock at the door. Thinking Tyler had forgotten his key again, I opened it without checking, only to find Noah standing there, looking uncharacteristically disheveled. "Hey," he said, his voice tight. "Can I hang out here for a bit? Kevin's got his girlfriend over, and they're having a loud discussion that I really don't want to be part of." "Oh, sure." I stepped aside, suddenly aware of the mess of books and snack wrappers on my bed. "Sorry about the chaos. I wasn't expecting company." Noah smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Trust me, chaos is an improvement over what's happening in my room right now." He settled into my desk chair while I cleared some space on my bed. We tried to watch a movie on my laptop, but Noah seemed distracted, checking his phone frequently and sighing. "Everything okay?" I finally asked during a lull in the film. Noah ran a hand through his hair, making it stand up in all directions. "Not really. That argument Kevin's having with his girlfriend? It's partly my fault. I accidentally let slip that I saw him flirting with someone else at a party last weekend. I didn't know they had some kind of understanding about that sort of thing." He made air quotes around the word. "Now they're both mad at me, and I don't think I can go back there tonight." "You can stay here," I offered without thinking. "Tyler's gone for the night, and his bed is probably a biohazard." Noah finished with a laugh. "I've seen how he lives." I couldn't argue with that. Tyler's side of the room looked like a laundry bomb had exploded, with clothes strewn everywhere and empty energy drink cans creating a small city on his desk. "Well, you can take my bed, and I'll sleep on the floor," I suggested, already mentally calculating how many blankets I'd need to make the thin carpet bearable. Noah shook his head. "I'm not kicking you out of your own bed. We could share, if that's not weird. The beds are tiny, but we could make it work." My heart did a strange little jump in my chest. Yeah, sure. That's fine." I tried to sound casual, like I regularly shared my twin-sized bed with attractive guys I might or might not have a crush on. We went back to watching the movie, but I couldn't focus anymore. I was acutely aware of Noah's presence beside me, the scent of his shampoo, the way he laughed at all the right moments in the film. When the movie ended, we both got ready for bed in awkward silence. I offered him a spare toothbrush I had, and we took turns using the small bathroom attached to the dorm room. When we finally turned off the lights and climbed into my bed, I lay rigid as a board, trying to take up as little space as possible. The bed was definitely not made for two people, and no matter how we positioned ourselves, some part of us was touching a knee, an elbow, a shoulder. "This is ridiculous," Noah whispered in the darkness after our third attempt to get comfortable. "Here, turn on your side." I did as he suggested, facing the wall, and then felt him shift behind me, his chest against my back, his arm cautiously draping over my waist. It was like being the little spoon in the world's most tense cuddle. "Is this okay?" he asked, his breath warm against my neck. I nodded, not trusting my voice, my heart hammering so loudly I was sure he could hear it. We lay like that for a while, neither of us speaking, but I knew Noah wasn't asleep either. His breathing wasn't deep enough, and occasionally his fingers would twitch against my stomach, sending little sparks of electricity through me. "Alex," he finally whispered, "can I tell you something?" "Of course," I replied, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. There was a long pause, and then, "I didn't really need to stay here tonight. Kevin and his girlfriend made up about 10 minutes after I left. They texted to tell me it was safe to come back." I froze, processing his words. "Then why?" "Because I wanted an excuse to be close to you," he admitted, his voice so quiet I almost missed it. "I've been trying to figure out how to tell you that I like you, but I never found the right moment." I turned around to face him, our noses almost touching in the narrow bed. In the dim light filtering through the blinds, I could just make out his features, his eyes searching mine. "You like me?" I repeated, feeling both elated and terrified. "Yeah," he smiled nervously. "Is that okay?" Instead of answering, I gathered all my courage and leaned forward, pressing my lips gently against his. It was brief and tentative, but when I pulled back, Noah's smile was radiant. "I'll take that as a yes," he whispered, before pulling me closer and kissing me again, more confidently this time. That night changed everything between us. We talked until the early hours of the morning, sharing things we'd never told anyone else. Noah told me about coming out to his parents during his senior year of high school, how his mom had been immediately supportive while his dad had needed more time, but eventually came around. I shared my own journey, how I'd always known but had kept it mostly to myself, not out of shame, but because it felt private. I've never actually dated anyone, I admitted in the darkness, feeling vulnerable but also strangely free. There was never anyone I wanted to risk it for. Noah's hand found mine under the covers. "And now I think I've found someone worth the risk," I said, surprised by my own boldness. The next morning, I woke up with Noah's arms still around me, his face peaceful in sleep. For a moment, I just watched him, trying to process everything that had happened. Then his eyes fluttered open, and he smiled sleepily at me. "Morning," he murmured, stretching but not moving away. "Morning," I replied, suddenly shy in the daylight. We might have stayed like that longer, but the door burst open, and Tyler stumbled in, still wearing his costume from the night before, some kind of zombie football player, now looking worse for wear. "Dude, you would not believe the night I had." He stopped mid-sentence, taking in the sight of Noah and me in bed together. "Oh, sorry, didn't realize you had company." I sat up quickly, my face burning. "Tyler, this is Noah. His roommate had a friend over, so he stayed here." Tyler raised an eyebrow, looking between us with a knowing smirk. "Right. The old roommate is too loud excuse. Classic." He winked exaggeratedly. "Don't worry. I'm just grabbing a change of clothes and heading to Jess's place. Carry on." He grabbed some items from his disaster of a closet and left with another exaggerated wink, leaving Noah and me in mortified silence. "Well," Noah finally said, "that was humiliating." I suggested. I was going to say inevitable, but sure, that works too. He laughed, pulling me back down beside him. "Does it bother you that he knows?" I thought about it for a moment. Actually, no, it doesn't. And it really didn't. For the first time, I didn't care who knew about this part of me, because the joy of being with Noah outweighed any anxiety I might have felt. The following weeks were a whirlwind of new experiences. Noah and I officially started dating, spending most of our free time together, studying in the library, exploring the small town surrounding our campus, or just hanging out in one of our rooms, usually mine, as Kevin had made it clear he was still annoyed with Noah, despite their superficial truce. Tyler, surprisingly, became one of our biggest supporters. He made an effort to give us space, texting before coming back to the room if he knew Noah was over, and even toning down his volume when we were studying. One night, after Noah had left, Tyler sat on his bed and looked at me seriously. "You know, I never would have pegged you for a secret romantic, Alex," he said, grinning. "You're always so quiet and serious. It's good to see you happy." His words touched me more than I expected. "Thanks, Tyler. And thanks for being cool about everything." He shrugged. "Love is love, man. Plus, Noah's cool. He actually laughs at my jokes, unlike some people I could mention." He threw a pillow at me, which I caught and threw back, leading to an impromptu pillow fight that left us both breathless with laughter. It wasn't all smooth sailing, though. As Noah and I became more visible as a couple on campus, I experienced moments of discomfort I hadn't anticipated. The first time someone made a comment, nothing overtly hostile, just a snide remark as we walked by holding hands. I tensed up, my instinct to pull away, to make myself smaller and less noticeable. Noah noticed immediately. "We don't have to do this," he said gently, loosening his grip on my hand. "We can take it slow, be more private if that's what you want." But I shook my head, tightening my hold on his hand instead. "No, I don't want to hide. It's just new for me, being so visible." "It gets easier," he promised. "And I'm right here with you." He was right. It did get easier, especially with him by my side. We found our rhythm as a couple, learning each other's habits and quirks. Noah was a morning person who liked to go for runs at dawn, while I preferred to stay up late and sleep in. He was meticulously organized, while I tended toward creative chaos. He introduced me to his passion for photography, teaching me how to use his vintage cameras, while I shared my love of classic literature, reading passages from my favorite books aloud as we lay tangled together on my bed. There were challenges too, of course. Our first real argument happened when Noah felt I was still too hesitant about our relationship in public. "Sometimes I feel like you're ashamed of us," he said during a tense conversation in his room. Kevin had finally forgiven him and was now spending most of his time at his girlfriend's apartment. "That's not fair," I protested. "Just because I'm not comfortable with PDA doesn't mean I'm ashamed." "It's not about PDA, Alex. It's about the way you tense up whenever anyone looks at us too long, or how you introduce me as your friend to people from your classes." His words stung because there was truth in them. I was still navigating what it meant to be openly gay, still learning to shed years of instinctive caution. "I'm trying," I said finally, my voice small. "This is all new to me, Noah. I've never had to think about how to introduce a boyfriend before, or worry about whether holding hands might make someone uncomfortable. I'm not ashamed of us. I'm just figuring it out as I go." Noah's expression softened. "I know, and I'm sorry for pushing. It's just that I'm so proud to be with you. And sometimes it hurts when it feels like you don't feel the same way." "I do," I insisted, taking his hands in mine. "I'm so proud to be with you that it scares me sometimes, how much I care about you already." That night marked a turning point for us. We talked for hours, really talked, about our fears and insecurities, about what we wanted from our relationship. Noah shared how his first boyfriend in high school had kept their relationship secret, making him feel like a shameful secret, while I explained my lifelong habit of keeping my personal life private, not just my sexuality, but everything that mattered to me. "I want to be better," I promised him. "I want to be brave enough to show the world how I feel about you." The opportunity to prove those words came sooner than I expected. The following weekend, Tyler decided to host what he called a small gathering in our room, which quickly expanded to include half the floor. Music pounded from his speakers, and people were crammed into every available space, red cups in hand, shouting to be heard over the noise. I was pressed against the wall, feeling increasingly claustrophobic when Noah found me. "Want to get out of here?" he shouted over the music. I nodded gratefully, but as we tried to make our way to the door, Tyler intercepted us, clearly already several drinks in. "Where you going, lovebirds?" he slurred, throwing his arms around both our shoulders. "The party's just getting started. It's a bit loud for us," I tried to explain, wincing as someone turned the music up even higher. Tyler's face fell. "Too loud? Man, I'm always too loud for you, aren't I? That's why you're always disappearing." There was genuine hurt in his voice, surprising me. "I just wanted to throw a cool party, you know? Make some friends. But I guess I'm just the annoying loud roommate everyone avoids." I felt a pang of guilt. For all his exuberance, Tyler had always been kind to me, especially about my relationship with Noah. And here I was, once again sneaking away because he was too loud. "You're not annoying," I said firmly. "You're just energetic. And yeah, sometimes I need quiet. But that doesn't mean I don't like having you as a roommate." Tyler's face brightened. "Really? So you'll stay? Just for a bit?" I looked at Noah, who smiled and nodded. "We'll stay," I agreed. "But maybe we could turn the music down just a little?" To my surprise, Tyler immediately went to lower the volume. Anything for my favorite roomie and his boyfriend. The word boyfriend echoed in my head as Tyler disappeared back into the crowd. It was the first time he'd used that term so publicly, and I waited for the familiar anxiety to rise up, but it didn't come. Instead, I felt a strange sense of pride as I looked at Noah beside me. Without overthinking it, I reached for his hand, intertwining our fingers. When he looked at me questioningly, I leaned in and kissed him, right there in the middle of the party, with at least 20 people around us. It wasn't a dramatic gesture, just a brief, sweet kiss, but it felt monumental to me. "What was that for?" Noah asked when I pulled back, his eyes shining. "For being patient with me," I said, "and because I wanted to." We ended up staying at the party for another hour, dancing together, meeting new people, existing openly as a couple. It wasn't always comfortable. I still felt self-conscious at times, but with Noah's hand in mine, it was easier than I'd expected. Later that night, after most of the guests had left and Tyler had passed out on his bed, Noah and I lay together on my twin bed, our bodies fitting together now with practiced ease. I'm proud of you, Noah whispered, his fingers tracing patterns on my arm. I know tonight wasn't easy for you. It was easier than I thought it would be, I admitted. Being with you makes me braver. He smiled, pressing a kiss to my forehead. You've always been brave, Alex. You just needed to realize it. As we drifted off to sleep, I reflected on how much had changed since that first night Noah had crawled into my bed with the excuse that his roommate was too loud. What had started as a simple crush had grown into something profound, something that was changing me in ways I never expected. The rest of the semester flew by in a blur of classes, study sessions, movie nights, and quiet moments together. We had our ups and downs, arguments about time management when finals approached, moments of insecurity, the occasional misunderstanding. But through it all, our connection deepened. By the time winter break approached, the thought of being apart for 3 weeks felt unbearable. We spent our last night together in my room. Tyler had left early for break, giving us a rare night of privacy, talking about everything and nothing, making plans for the spring semester. I was thinking, Noah said as we lay facing each other in the darkness, maybe we could look for an apartment together next year. Off campus. My heart skipped a beat. You want to live together? Too soon? He asked, suddenly uncertain. I shook my head, smiling. No, not too soon. I'd love that. The relief and joy on his face made my chest ache with happiness. We sealed the plan with a kiss that quickly deepened into something more, our bodies expressing what words couldn't quite capture. The next morning, as I helped Noah carry his bags to his car, a light snow began to fall, dusting the campus in white. We stood beside his loaded vehicle, reluctant to say goodbye. It's just 3 weeks, Noah reminded me, though he looked as miserable as I felt. 3 very long weeks, I corrected, pulling him close for one last embrace. As we held each other in the gently falling snow, I marveled at how completely my life had changed in just a few months. All because Tyler was too loud, and Noah had crawled into my bed without explaining. I love you, I whispered against his neck, saying the words for the first time. Noah pulled back, his eyes wide and bright. I love you too, he said, his voice thick with emotion. We kissed once more, snow melting in our hair, before he finally got into his car and drove away, promising to call as soon as he reached Seattle. I stood watching until his car disappeared from view, snow collecting on my shoulders. Then I turned and walked back to my dorm, already counting the days until I would see him again, grateful for the loud roommate who had inadvertently brought us together, and for the courage I'd found to embrace this unexpected love. Total _char_count, 18,896.